Check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. We are good to go. What's up, guys? Thank you all so much for being here today. And I apologize for a little bit of the technical delay. This is actually the very first virtual real estate investing webinar. So you're going to have to forgive my for being a technology noob. I promise to get better at this very soon. And we're going to do one of these every Thursday, and they're only going to keep getting better. So stick around. You guys can register for this class for free anytime. The link is always going to be virtualinvestingclass.com. If you want to just bookmark that, you can register and you'll be reminded when we start, and then you'll get the replay in your email every week, basically. Cool. So anyways, my name is Brian Elwood, and if you don't know who I am, I'll go into that in just a moment. But this webinar is all about how to create your freedom through real estate without leaving your computer. That's what I've essentially done and what I want to show you how to do because I'm passionate about it. So today I'm going to show you why virtual real estate investing is superior to traditional real estate investing. I'm also going to show you why it's the easiest path to financial and personal freedom for you. I'm going to go over some of the main keys that you need to know in order to be successful at real estate investing virtually. And I also don't have anything to sell on this webinar. There's only going to be a free giveaway at the end. Cool. So let's dive in. A little bit about me, in case you don't know who I am. I'm this tall, goofy guy in the blue shirt in both of these pictures. The girl with me on my right is Carly, my fiance, and that's our golden retriever, Penny. And on the left is a couple of our good friends, Caroline and Colin, hiking in the Rockies. We all live in Colorado, and I'll get to that in just a second because I don't invest in Colorado, and that's kind of part of the point. But we love it out here. We're always outdoors and big time snowboarders and skiers and all of that good stuff. But the prices of real estate are insane in Colorado. So I do not invest in here, and I'll tell you how I get around that on this webinar. This grocery store is in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is actually the last job I had in a string of about probably 15 years of bad jobs. I've probably worked everywhere: Jersey Mike's, Smoothie King, Hat World, CVS Pharmacy for 2 or 3 years. I went to college. I got the degree. I got the corporate job. I hated that and ended up here, basically, at this grocery store. And I knew when I was working at this grocery store, I was like in the kitchen, hydrating heads of lettuce in the back, wearing an apron. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it wasn't for me. And I knew that this was the last job I would ever have. I mean, I had jobs for 15 years, and I wasn't just a job hopper. Every job I had, I usually stayed for 1 to 3 years or so. But I hated them all. They were only good in the very beginning when the euphoria is still kind of high, and then they got bad. So when I was at this grocery store, I was kind of on a secret mission. Like every time I'd go to the car, I listened to podcasts and I would read books, and I had a job where I had to drive between stores. So I'd park the van and read some more of my books. And I actually got a tiny copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which if you haven't read that, then you're missing out. And I put it in my pocket. It was like this pocket-sized copy of the book. And every time I went to the bathroom, I read a few pages, and I was just geeking out over this concept of how I could instead of working for money, I could make my money work for me. Like I wanted that more than anything. I wanted to be a successful investor. And that's kind of what was going through my head, when I'm hanging out in the bathroom at this grocery store job. I'd shake hands with all the customers that came in and I'd ask them what they did for a living, which was not like me. I'm very introverted, but I was just so desperate. I knew I couldn't keep relying on jobs to make me happy. I had to go out and create a job or just do something different. So I was very curious about how entrepreneurs worked and how they even made that work for them. And one day I was in the grocery store and this young guy came in and he was wearing like sandals and basketball shorts, and he had pulled up in a nice Mustang, and he was just like real friendly and not rushed and laid back. And it was Tuesday, at 10 in the morning when everybody else is at work. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? And so I asked him, and he said he flipped houses and he wanted, he was actually looking for, someone to help him find deals. I didn't really actually find that out until maybe the third or fourth time I met him, because I bugged him enough and found out that was their biggest problem, was they couldn't find enough deals. Probably sounds familiar. It's everybody's biggest problem in real estate, it seems. So he taught me how to go out and find deals for him. And I found him one. It was this busted up house with this drug addicted tenant. And he asked me to go get pictures. And I went over to the house, and the tenant made me go get him Burger King breakfast before he would let me inside to look at the house. And so got the breakfast, came back, pit bull was chained in the front yard, and I'm running through the front yard with a tray of orange juice and coffee, like balancing it while just out of reach of this pit bull. I got his breakfast in my other hand, all to just hopefully get this house and help this investor, and make something. I didn't know what he was going to pay me, but he was mentoring me, and that was the most valuable thing. So long story short, I got the pictures. I showed it to him. He said, we're going to have to tear that thing down. So I actually didn't end up needing the pictures anyways, but he bought it. And then he invited me to lunch a month or two later, and he whipped out his checkbook and he scrawled out something on it, tore it off, and slid it across the table to me. And I picked the check up, and it was for $1,000. Which was pretty much the biggest check I'd ever made at one time. Most of my paychecks from all my jobs were never that much, unless I worked crazy overtime or something. And what I realized, it wasn't just about the amount. It was more about what I did for the amount. Because number one, I got the $1,000 without having a job or a boss or anything like that. I did it on my own. Number two, I probably only spent a total of maybe 3 hours of actual clock time on this deal, even though I spent a lot of stress on it, because it was the first one. 3 hours of clock time for $1,000. So I made $333 an hour to find that deal for him. And here I am at this grocery store making $9 an hour normally. $9 or $333. And so I realized that moment that I was capable of more. And I also realized that we are never paid based upon the time we put in, but only based upon the value that we add. Those investors, to them, that deal was worth $1,000 finder's fee. To me, and they didn't care if that took me 1 hour or 3 hours or 3 days or 3 weeks to find. It was worth $1,000 to them. And if you have a job that's hourly, you're probably saying, well, my pay is based upon time because, I'm paid to show up and ride the clock. But that's actually not true. The person that decided your hourly rate basically said, this person, let's say you make $20 an hour. They said this person, the position they're going to hold is worth about $20 an hour to us. That's about the amount of value on average that this person can add. Therefore, that's going to be their rate. Or if you make $50,000 a year, yes, you have to work 40-hour weeks. So it seems like it's time-based to get the $50,000, but really it's value-based. The person that set the salary, said, in about a year's time, this person will add around $50,000 worth of value to the company. That's what they're worth. We don't want to overpay them. So that's the value that's the appropriate value for the salary. And if you're in the entrepreneurial world, the value is set by you, not by your boss. That's the difference. If you can do something that's incredibly valuable to society, you can literally make $1 million in one day and nobody cares because the value's there. And so I realized at that moment that entrepreneurship was for me because the ceiling was finally removed from my income. And that was just sort of the epiphany that I never lost. I knew I had to be an entrepreneur. And I told you that I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I wanted to buy rental properties because I knew that real estate would allow me to make passive income and to kind of make my dollars work for me. And so fast forward another year or two of, grinding and going into credit card debt and trying to find deals and still working side jobs. I quit the grocery store when I got that first finder's fee. I finally saved up enough money to buy this. I believe I paid $17,000 for this house. It's the first house I ever bought. It's in a ghetto kind of part of North Nashville. And it was the first, cash flow property I was ever going to get. And I was so excited about it. Here's a picture of it, another picture of it. You can see how terrible it is. It's like shaped like a trailer. It's on a busy street. It's only one bedroom. It's 500 square feet. Look at the house next to it. It's falling in. It's a tear down. I don't even know if that house is still there or not. But I bought this house, that was my first one. I went all in. 17 grand was like everything I had earned, in real estate, living off of basically, nothing. No vacations, no fancy house, car. Everything just went into like more marketing so I could send out more letters, and finally got up enough money to buy this. And over time, fixed it up as I was able to raise the money, get the money together to do that. And got it rented out for, I think, $525 a month. And the day that my first check came in, I kind of had an epiphany because I didn't have a loan on this thing and it was bringing in $500 a month. So maybe I was netting 300 of that or so after you pay the expenses and tax, insurance, property manager, all that. Maybe it was 250. I was netting whatever. But the point is I knew that now, no matter what, I had money for groceries every month. 250, $300 a month. That's a good, grocery run. That's 2 good grocery runs a month. And so I knew that no matter how much earned income I ever made or did not make, like whether I had a job or not, I had automatic free groceries for life. Basically, that's what I'm calling $300 a month, free groceries for life. Because that's kind of how I see this whole game, is the properties cover your expenses. And then once you have all of your expenses covered by passive income, you're what they call a 100%er. And so, this was the beginning. I still own this house today and it's actually done great. When I bought it, people thought I was stupid and other investors didn't want it. But now it's probably worth, I don't know, $60,000. And I only put maybe a total of 30 into it. And it's rented very steadily for 4 years now. Maybe it's more like 5 years. And the rent's gone up to $625 and so on and so on. So even when you screw up in real estate and buy something like this, it's hard to screw this up. I mean, you'll still do okay. Of course, there was probably something better out there, but the point is I jumped in and just took action and bought this, even though I was scared out of my mind, honestly, to buy my first one. So let's fast forward a little bit to like what my life looks like today, and we can get this behind us and start getting into some good stuff that's going to help you guys learn how to do this for you. So, like I said, I live in Colorado. All of the houses that I buy and own and manage are in Tennessee or Alabama. So nothing in Colorado. The prices in Tennessee and Alabama are much better. I originally lived in Tennessee, so I was somewhat familiar with that market. And I lived there when the business began and moved to Colorado, kind of in the middle of it. And I know some of you are thinking, well, you know, you're asking us to invest virtually, but you actually lived in the market where you now invest virtually. And that's true. It did give me a bit of an advantage, only in the sense of just market knowledge, just learning the market there. And you do not need to have that. You can actually very quickly learn what you need to know about any market in order to start investing in there without ever having lived there. It wouldn't be a bad idea to jump on a plane and go there at least once, if you're going to start buying houses in a certain city, just to make sure it feels right and meet some people in person. But you certainly do not have to live there or live anywhere close to it, or even in this country. And I'll show you why in a second. So my business, we've also got, 3 to 5 renovation projects kind of going on at a time, usually so we can exit deals and free up cash to buy more deals, to more wisely invest the money. We have an acquisition manager going on appointments and making offers, analyzing leads, and getting contracts signed all day, every day, which I'll talk more about today in this presentation. And my rental portfolio basically at this point provides enough passive income to pay my bills without having to work. It's not like a crazy amount. I think the portfolio does bring in 6 figures a year in gross revenue, but it's less than 6 figures, by the time we take out expenses and stuff. But it's actually enough to, to pay my bills. I mean, because I don't live way above my means or anything. And so that basically means I can do what I want all day. And this is actually what I want to do, is teach you how to do this. It's what I'm mostly passionate about. And I also want to continue to grow my portfolio. The main thing I want to do is teach you how to build this freedom into your own life, because to me, that's the most important and valuable thing you can have, is being able to call the shots day in, day out in your own life. So what is all this for? I just kind of ruined it, but we're going to go into this anyways. Who here knows who Dean Graziosi is? If you know who he is, maybe type it in the chat box. So Dean, he's basically a personal development guru kind of guy, very successful real estate investor. He has owned, 500 rental properties. And at one time he said he was like fixing and flipping 1,000 houses at his peak. Insane amounts of volume in real estate. And we got to see him talk at a live event in front of a small group last year. It was really cool. He was one of the best presentations I've ever heard. And I want to share something with you that he told us that day. He basically has this concept of 7 layers of why. And he says that anytime you or, getting into a business venture or whatever, you've got to dig deep and figure out what is your why behind all of this. Why are you doing all this at the deepest level? And knowing that, being aware of that, basically becomes the driving force that motivates you going forward. And so what Dean said was that, let me tell you first how you do this. So if I was coaching you and I was going to take you through Dean's exercise, I'd say, so why are you on this webinar today? And maybe you'd say, well, I want to learn to invest in real estate. Well, why do you want to learn to invest in real estate? Because I want to make money. Well, why do you want to make money? So I can, become financially free. So why do you want to become financially free? So I can spend more time with my kids. Why is that important to you? Because, ultimately I want to have the freedom to do what I want to do and do the things in life that matter most to me. And you can see how if you keep asking why, and he says to do it 7 times, ask why 7 times deep, you ultimately arrive at the true purpose or the true calling that you kind of have, and what is most important to you. So I strongly encourage that you do this exercise. So Dean, apparently he talked about there was a study or something done among entrepreneurs when they're trying to find out their why, and they go through this exercise, and he found that almost all entrepreneurs have the same why at the deepest level. Can you guess what it is? If so, type it in the chat box now. Can anybody guess what the deepest why might be for entrepreneurs? Well, I kind of ruined it earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you what it is. It's freedom. Freedom is what drives most people to do what they do. Freedom is basically defined as this: being able to do what you want. Sorry, it's actually blacked out, but it says what you want above here, when you want, where you want, how you want, and with whom you want. Basically, you can call the shots. If you want to wake up on a Tuesday and drink margaritas by the pool all day and do nothing once in a while, you have the freedom to do so. If you want to work on Saturday night instead of Wednesday because you have plans that day or something, you don't have to ask anybody if that's okay. You just do it. If you want to take, a month and go to Spain, which I actually just did that for about 2 or 3 weeks, and run your business from the beach in Spain, you can, because you've set it up to be that way. And you have the financial freedom to where it doesn't matter anyways. That's the beauty of this whole journey, is being in that place. Because so many of us do what we do every day because we're in this like hamster wheel kind of existence where it's like, I'm doing this because I have to. I'd rather be doing something else, but I have to do this. I hate when people say that. I realize that, if you look very, very short term, you do have to do stuff. Like, you'll lose your job, you'll lose your income, you'll be kicked out on the street. I get it. Like, you can't quit your job today. But the have to mentality is very toxic because it doesn't take very long to construct a reality where the have to's go away and they're replaced by want to. And so if you want that bad enough, I'll show you how to get it, because that's what I have built for myself. And once I've tasted it, I'm like, man, everybody needs to have freedom, right? Freedom to do as they please. And it takes discipline to create freedom. Okay. This isn't like preaching some lazy existence. But you get to be the one to discipline yourself, and you get to be the one to create your own routines. And when you get to do the creation of your own life, it's not so bad to put some work in there, every now and then. You might even decide to work more than the average person does and do things you're passionate about and make even more money, whatever. The point is you're no longer living this I have to existence. Therefore, I'm sacrificing all my dreams and goals and desires and passions and pushing things off until someday maybe. It's unhealthy, and you only live once, and I just don't believe in living that way. And so that's the deepest why for me for this whole real estate thing. And I wanted to make sure you guys understood that, because real estate's like, it's houses and it's cash and it's on the surface level. And this is at the deepest part. Okay. So before we go back up to the surface, this is important that you guys know that. All right. So everybody, you included probably, everyone says they want freedom, right? It sounds nice. Of course, you'd love to have what I just described. The problem is that most people actually get into real estate and they create a business that doesn't actually give them freedom, but instead takes it away. Isn't that a sad thing? They also, even when they make money, they don't manage the money and direct the money in a way to add to their freedom. They just get bigger houses, nicer cars, cooler clothes. And if you look at their schedule, they're more stressed out, less free. It doesn't make any sense. Freedom should actually be your barometer or your gauge for how successful you are, not money. In the 4-Hour Work Week, which is one of my all-time favorite books, Tim Ferriss gives an example of two different guys. Guy number one makes 40 grand a year and only works 10 hours a week from the beach or a coffee shop or whatever from his laptop doing what he loves. Guy number two makes 500 grand a year, working 80 hours a week, traveling 3 to 4 weeks a month, doing what he hates. Which guy would you rather be? So how do people screw up real estate investing? A lot of people get into it because they're promised that they're going to become wealthy. And a lot of people are pretty attracted by the whole dream of becoming financially free, the cash flow, passive income, rich dad, poor dad thing. You can't lie. Real estate's a lucrative career. Houses cost a lot. So if you buy and sell houses, there's big margins. It's not like you're selling sandwiches. It's easy to make 30 grand flipping a house. That's a lot of money. So once you get this business figured out, you can make a lot of money doing it. But that's dollars you work for. That's dollars earned. It's called active income, not passive income. And you need to know the difference between the two. Passive income is much more important than active income. You use the active income to make passive income, to create it. All right. And it's not sexy. You might have 50 grand in cash from flipping, and then you buy one house with it and it makes you a net of $300 or $400 a month. So your cool looking 50 grand that was in your bank account is now just a little check for $300 a month coming to the mailbox. But that's where you need to put your 50 grand if you want to build long-term real wealth and passive income so that you don't have to rely on the next flip and the next flip and the market to keep going up and all that stuff to be all right. So yeah, most people just totally forget about this cash flow thing. They just spend all their money on cool stuff, nice house, nice car, more vacations. And as soon as the market dries up, what happens? No more flips, no more money, no more house, no more car. Their income vanishes. And then what do they say? Well, the market crashed, or, couldn't find any deals. Just another victim of the market. I mean, when the market crashed in 2008, so many real estate investors lost everything. And now they're all out doing something else. There's guys that made millions of dollars in the real estate market in the 2000s up to 2007, 8 when it crashed that now have nothing to show for that period in their life. And isn't that a shame? Because they could have bought sensible properties in good markets that were not cyclical. It's what we call linear markets, where the values don't fluctuate so much, and created cash flow. And they would still have that today if they had put their money in the right place. So that's super, super key. Let's break this down. So your freedom, what I described earlier, is going to come from passive income. Passive income comes from rental properties. Rental properties, the best ones, exist in virtual markets. I'll explain why in a minute. That means a market that's away from where you live. So if you buy those houses, if you buy houses in virtual markets, you are doing virtual real estate investing. So that's all that this term really means, is learning to buy properties in markets not where you live, but that make more sense to invest in than where you live. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that they have to invest in their own backyard just because they're too clingy to let anybody else, help them. They've got to go see every property themselves. It's not true. I've probably bought, at least a couple dozen or more houses that I've never seen in my life and don't ever plan to go see. And they've worked out great. And there's a system to just make sure that that happens. It's not hard. So virtual real estate investing is better because there's always going to be a better city out there for cash flow than the one you currently live in. I know that you're saying, well, my city's great and it's growing and the prices are still cheap. That's fine. The city you live in might work. I'm not saying that you should never invest in your city, but I'm going to show you some criteria to make sure that your city has. And I'm just going to tell you that, what are the chances that you happen to live in the best city for real estate investing in the United States or wherever you live? Do you really think that you happen to live in that city? Because if you don't, then it would be better to invest in a virtual market than to invest in your city just for the benefit of being able to see the property with your own eyes. I'll show you how to build a team around you that knows more than you do and that can take care of you and make sure that you make good decisions when you buy houses. Economy is very important, and we're going to talk about that in a slide here in a moment as well. Price needs to make sense. Like I told you, here in Denver, the prices are $300,000 or $400,000 for a house. No one's buying rentals here unless you're an idiot or you're just really rich and you don't care about getting high returns. Like if you were Mark Cuban and you had $1 billion, it wouldn't really matter like that much. You could buy a $400,000 house and rent it out for $2,500 a month, and I guess that would be okay. But for most of us, 99.9% of us, makes no sense at all. You wouldn't be getting a good return on your money. Another benefit that no one ever talks about is this: investing in real estate virtually from your computer. It forces you to shift from being self-employed to being a real business owner. So rather than doing things yourself, you have to learn to delegate them. If you've ever read The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of generally considered to be the best or one of the best business books of all time. Yet it's the most forgotten advice that has to be relearned over and over again. You either learn it the hard way or you do what he says, basically. And if you haven't read the book, you've got to read it. If you have read it, this is your opportunity to stop listening to what Michael Gerber says and start actually taking his advice and hiring people and building a team and putting systems in place to make this thing happen without you physically being present. It's no longer necessary. Maybe 20 years ago, when we didn't have the internet and all that stuff, this would have been pretty hard to do. I'll admit that. But nowadays with technology, it's just getting easier by the day to invest virtually. So yeah, getting results from other people is how you scale a business. If you're planning on being a one-man or one-woman show, you're going to max out very quick. Bottlenecks are going to pop up all over your business, and you're going to have a desk covered in receipts that you need to enter, all this little stupid stuff. You're going to max out. It happens every day to small business owners who don't understand the E-Myth concept. So I'll show you how to build a team as well. So let's talk about economy for a second. It's really important variable. If you're going to pick a virtual market to invest in, it only makes sense to invest in markets that are growing, not declining. If there's a city out there that people are moving away from versus moving to, that's not a good sign. You need to track the population growth, check the population growth over the last 5 years, and make sure it's growing. And really, the faster it's growing, the better. But there's a caveat to that, because if it's growing incredibly fast, the prices may already be too high to account for that growth, like Denver is an example. So you kind of got to keep looking if that happens. Another thing is you want to see multiple economic sectors in the market. What I mean by that is, let's say there's a Chrysler factory in the market you're thinking about investing in, and that provides most of the jobs for that city. And that's pretty much the main employer of the entire city. If that Chrysler market shuts down, what happens? The city tanks, the economy goes to crap. Think about the old mining towns that were in Colorado and stuff, 100 years ago. They were booming. And now when I drive by them, it's just a bunch of shacks and, it's like a ghost town almost, because their only thing that drove their economy disappeared. So that's an extreme example, like a mining town. But there's plenty of little towns around the United States where the economy is strong, but it's just driven by one thing. And it's too risky. So you want to look for multiple economic sectors. So in this example I have here, if you had well, screw that example. Let's say you had a FedEx shipping facility. I'll just use Memphis, Tennessee as an example. So Memphis, Tennessee has FedEx. They have the International Cargo Airport. They've got Nike. They've got a university there. They've got so many jobs from all these different sectors that are bringing people to that city, that the economy is strong and it's propped up in multiple places. So if one of the legs falls out from there's a bunch of other ones there to support it. And prices are still low as well. That's why Memphis, Tennessee is one of the most popular turnkey real estate investing markets, which means there's companies there that sell properties that are just rent ready and ready to go. Like Memphis Invest, Kent Clothier, a friend of mine, runs that and does really, really well because, they picked a great city and they're great at what they do. So multiple sectors supporting the economy, not just one thing. Live where you want, invest where you should. That's a mantra of mine. It's my belief, and what I've seen in my own life, that it is possible to live wherever you want in the world. But you got to invest to make the money to do that. And you need to invest where you should invest, not where you want to invest, where it makes the most sense. Investing is a disciplined decision that there's no place for emotion in investing. So we talked about economy being important. Price is the other thing that's really important to me. You have to have both of them for it to be a good market to invest in. And I use this 1% to 2% rule as just a rough starting point. Some investors would say this is not good to go by, or it's just too simple. I see the point in that, but it's a good starting point, because one of the biggest mistakes I see when people get into real estate is they are completely missing the mark. They're way off in terms of what they think is a good investment. So the 1% to 2% rule basically states that 1 month's rent divided by the purchase price of the house should be between 1% and 2%. Examples: you've got a $70,000 house that rents for $700 a month. So you take 1 month's rent, which is $700, divided by the purchase price, $70,000. You get 0.01, which is 1%. So 700 is exactly 1% of 70,000. And 1% is the minimum we're looking for. If it was 0.8%, it'd be too low. 1% barely meets the minimum requirement, so we might buy that house. What if you had a $70,000 house that only rented for $500. Well, $500 divided by 70,000 equals 0.007, which translates to 0.07%. So that does not meet our minimum because our minimum is 1. We'd like to be closer to 2. Rare events you can get higher than 2, which is great, but usually everything falls, 1 to 2. But this one's 0.07%. So I would not buy that. If someone's only going to rent for 570 grand, don't buy. What if it was a $70,000 house that rented for $900 a month? 900 divided by 70,000 is 0.012, which is 1.2%. So that's above our minimum requirement. We would think about buying that house for sure. So how many times do you talk to your buddy at the backyard barbecue and he's talking about moving out of his $400,000 house that he's got a mortgage on and he's going to rent it out and make some money? You say, what would it rent for? Oh, I can get $2,500 a month for this thing. Sounds like a lot, right? $2,500. Well, now you can tell him he's an idiot because he's not even hitting 1%. 2,500 divided by 400,000 is 0.006 or 0.6%, below the minimum. So that's why we don't buy expensive houses. To rent a $400,000 house out and have it make sense, you would need to be renting it for $4,000 a month or more. And even that would be kind of scary because there probably wouldn't be a lot of cash flow left on that. And it's a big mortgage payment that you got to pay if that thing goes vacant for a month or two. It's not worth it. Your 400 grand is much better spent buying 8 $50,000 houses than one $400,000 house because you get 8 times the appreciation spread out among 8 houses, and you get a lot better return than 0.6%, or not return but ratio. So bottom line is, when you're looking at virtual markets, just run this math real quick. If a realtor sends you a deal and they say, I got a house that'll rent for $900 and it's only $150,000, that's right away not a good deal. No way. 150 grand needs to rent for 1,500 or higher to meet the 1% rule. And just don't break this rule because you don't need to. There's plenty of markets out there where you can find deals that fall easily within this range. So what else do you need? This is really important. You've got to have a team to invest virtually. Obviously, if you're not there, you've got to have some people there, right? Because people do need to do work on this property in many different ways. So here's kind of the starting point when I'm going to go into a virtual market. Find a really good realtor. Realtors will help you learn the areas that make sense to invest in, the areas that are hot. They'll give you advice on how much you need to renovate a house to make it acceptable for a certain area for renting, et cetera. It's great to have a good realtor. Anytime you need to sell something, they'll list it for you and get top dollar and do a great job. Wholesalers, they find you deals. These are the guys who basically go out and hustle and find deals, get deals under contract, and bring them to you. It's not going to be as good as you do in your own marketing, but you do need to build a network with the list of wholesalers in your market. It's very important. Property manager. You need a property manager to manage your properties for you, long distance. Extremely important that you find a good property manager. A lot of investors will tell you that property management makes or breaks your real estate investing career, so it's super important. Inspector. Whoops, I skipped contractor. Contractor. This is the person. So when I get a new property under contract, I send him over there and I say, hey man, will you do a repair estimate on that for me just to get it rent ready? He says, yeah, sure. And he goes in there a couple of days later and spends, 30 minutes just kind of checking everything out. And he writes up a bid and he says it's going to be $7,000, to get it repaired. And that helps me to kind of get a starting point to know what it's going to take to get the thing done. And then I'll use them to actually do the repairs once we close. But after that, before closing, I'll also call my inspector, certified home inspector, and pay, the $300 to get a professional home inspection done on the property. And then he will call me and we'll go over the report together, and he'll send me the email with the report attached with the pictures and all that. So I can see what I'm buying. And Title company handles the closing, lenders, banks, and private money to get the money for the deal. And that's basically the team you have to build to become a real estate investor. And you don't have to worry about getting the best team members ever to get started. You can upgrade these people as you find better ones as you go on, or as you, I guess, advance your career as an investor. But you want to get the best team possible that you can starting out. So there's one more team member that I haven't mentioned, and this team member is much more important than all the rest. And this is the only sort of in-house employee that I recommend you hire. I mean, yeah, you need an office manager to help you with the pesky stuff. But this next person I'm going to talk about is who I'd hire first, and that's your acquisition manager. So I'm going to talk about it in this slide. Let me actually jump to this slide first. So how we have gotten every deal that we've ever bought in history in 8 years of being an investor. I've never bought a deal that was listed on the MLS from a realtor. Every single one has been from buying it from a wholesaler, direct mail, our pay-per-click, Craigslist ads, just following up with our own database, etc. And so all these deals were off market. We reached out to the owner first. Absentee owners are our bread and butter. That's who we go after. Other investors like me who are just looking to get rid of properties. I've even sold some of my properties to them. It's kind of like trading properties, It's kind of like some investors, maybe they're getting older and they just want to get out of some of the stuff. Or I bought properties before that were needed to be torn down and I don't know how to build new houses. So I just sold the lot to another investor and maybe I only broke even, but he got to make money. And, it's kind of how it happens. But, so most of the good deals we've ever bought have been from absentee owners. And we have always had a full-time sales guy, except in the very beginning when we did it ourselves. And this guy answers the phone. He takes the calls. He analyzes the leads, figures out what we're going to offer. He goes on the appointment. He talks to the sellers. He does his own repair estimates, takes pictures and videos. He leaves them with a contract, follows up on it, gets it signed, completes the title work. He sends the pictures and the video he takes to me so I can go ahead and see what I'm buying, even though I'm still going to do the contractor and the inspector, and I'm going to get the property manager in there and all that. I get pictures and videos from him too. And other investors, like I put on this slide, get really jealous. How in the hell, Brian, are you finding $30,000 houses? I don't see any of that listed. Well, it's not listed. I found it on my own. Off-market deals. Off-market is the key to being successful as an investor, because negotiation is the key. You probably heard that negotiation is actually the quickest and easiest money you will ever make. That's why you need somebody to do this for you all day, every day. Sometimes a conversation can save you $10, $20, $30, $40,000. We've had people drop their price by $100,000 before, just with one conversation. So, of course, their price was way too high to start with for them to have that much room to come down. But the point is, it's all about finding your own deals, and it's worth it to pay your acquisition manager a little bit of, what you're making in order to have this person doing it for you, because they, like I put on here, they complete the title work. They can drive the seller to the closing. You don't have time to talk to all these sellers yourself. There's just no way. You have to have somebody doing it for you. And so our business has been big. It's been small. It's been medium, over our history. We've had as many as 10 or 11 employees. We don't have that many now, but I can just tell you that by far the most impactful hire that we've ever made is the acquisition manager. That's the one hire. that basically just took our business from, I think we were doing 300 grand a year or so, to over 7 figures a year. And this is, I'm talking about more like high volume flipping here, so that we could get the money to buy rentals. But just having this person, that was just bringing in new contracts every single week, sign deals. So all I do is I just see, okay, 123 Main Street for $30,000. Here's the pictures. Here's the video. We got 45 days of due diligence. Do you want it or not? It's just like I get to just see the bullet points. And if we have to go back and renegotiate, he does that. If we got to do the title work, he does that. If we have to go get a death certificate from somebody, he does that. It's great to have an acquisition manager. You should pay them well as soon as they start serving you well, because it will change your investing business. So this brings me to the part where I'm going to give something away for free. And some of you may have gotten this book already. I'm not sure if you have or have not. Hopefully you got more value from this webinar if you have already read this book. But for those of you that haven't, the book is called Fire Yourself. And I wrote it just a few months ago. It's only been for sale for a few months, but I'm actually giving it away for free. And in it, I basically detail in great detail everything you need to do to make this hire within your own business. Like step by step, what job posting to run, where to run it, what to, interview questions to ask, how to build an automated hiring funnel, how to implement a contest between the top candidates, the personality test you need to give them to make sure you're hiring, a high quick start guy, how to pay your acquisition manager and manage them ongoing, what KPIs to track, little tweaks that they can use on the appointment to literally double their conversion rate. I basically compressed everything I've learned in a long time into this book, and it's very actionable material. It's like 70 pages, but every page is do this, do that, do this, do that. And it will change your investing business. I would never have an investing business without an acquisition manager. It's the fastest and most effective way to grow your portfolio, bring in deals. You need somebody out in the field making offers for you all day, every day, real offers, that make sense for you to where you'd be real excited if the person says yes. And a lot of time they'll say no, but this is just a business of repeated habits, done consistently, and making offers, analyzing leads, analyzing what's out there and making real offers on them is simply what you have to do. Don't be the investor that kind of sits on the sideline complaining that there's not any deals. There are deals. I'm finding them. Other successful investors are finding them. If you're not finding deals, are you marketing? Are you looking at deals every day? Are you making written offers? If you're not doing these things, you probably hate doing them. And I agree. I don't like doing them either. And that's why I hire somebody to do them for me. So that is about all I've got today, guys and gals. I really appreciate you all watching this webinar, and I hope you got value from it. So if you would like a free copy of the book, you can go to www.fireyourself.net. And I hope to see you on the other side. I'll talk to you then. Until then, take it easy. Peace.